Welcome back to It's Polarizing, the channel where we dissect history's most fascinating and often contentious relationships. Today, we're diving deep into the complex bond between Russia and Ukraine, a story spanning centuries, intertwined with cultural kinship, political maneuvering, and, unfortunately, conflict. This isn't just a contemporary issue. It's rooted in a shared past that continues to shape the present. From the shared cradle of civilization in Kievan Rus to the tumultuous years following the Soviet Union's collapse, the story of Russia and Ukraine is one of interwoven destinies. We'll explore the key historical junctures, unpacking Russia's enduring interest in Ukraine, and shedding light on the events that have led to the current situation. Join us as we untangle this complex narrative, exploring the historical forces that bind and divide these two nations. Understanding this intricate past is crucial to grasping the present and navigating towards a future where peace and mutual respect prevail. Our journey begins in the 9th century with Kievan Rus, a vast East Slavic state. Centered in Kiev, it was a crucible of shared cultural and religious identity. Its legacy shaped language, art, and religious practices. Kievan Rus connected Scandinavia to Byzantium. Its rulers embraced Orthodox Christianity, impacting Eastern Europe's religious landscape. St. Sophia Cathedral in Kiev reflects this shared heritage. The Mongol invasions shattered Kievan Rus' unity. This led to distinct developments in Russia and Ukraine. As Kievan Rus faded into the annals of history, a new power emerged in the east, the Grand Duchy of Moscow. Over centuries, this principality expanded its influence, eventually transforming into the formidable Russian Empire. This expansionist drive brought the territories of present-day Ukraine under Russian control, beginning a long and often turbulent relationship. The integration of Ukraine into the Russian Empire wasn't a smooth process. Cultural and linguistic differences, coupled with a distinct Ukrainian identity, fueled resistance to assimilation. The Tsars, determined to consolidate their rule, responded with policies aimed at suppressing Ukrainian culture and language. Despite these efforts, Ukrainian identity persisted, nurtured by a vibrant literary and artistic scene. The struggle to preserve their cultural heritage in the face of imperial pressure would become a recurring theme in Ukrainian history. The Russian Revolution of 1917 brought about the Bolsheviks' rise to power and the creation of the Soviet Union. Ukraine, caught in the crosshairs of revolution and civil war, briefly experienced a period of independence before being forcibly incorporated into the Soviet state as the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Within the Soviet system, Ukraine occupied a complex and often contradictory position. It was hailed as a vital part of the Soviet economy, its fertile lands earning it the moniker breadbasket of the Soviet Union. However, this economic importance went hand in hand with political subjugation and cultural repression. The Holodomor, a man-made famine engineered by Stalin's regime in the 1930s, remains a deeply traumatic chapter in Ukrainian history. This horrific event, which claimed millions of Ukrainian lives, is seen by many as a genocide aimed at crushing Ukrainian resistance to Soviet rule. Section 5. Independence and its aftermath. Ukraine finds its footing. The late 20th century witnessed the Soviet Union crumble under the weight of its own contradictions. In 1991, Ukraine declared its independence, marking a historic turning point. After decades of Soviet rule, Ukrainians embraced the opportunity to chart their own course. The transition to independence, however, was fraught with challenges. The legacy of Soviet economic policies, coupled with endemic corruption, hampered Ukraine's development. Moreover, the country found itself caught between the geopolitical ambitions of Russia and the West, its strategic location making it a focal point of international attention. Despite these hurdles, Ukraine embarked on a journey of democratic reforms, seeking to establish a more open and just society. The path was far from smooth, marked by political instability and economic uncertainty, but the yearning for freedom and self-determination remained a powerful driving force. And then comes what we coin the Orange Revolution, a nation's desire for democracy. In 2004, Ukraine was rocked by the Orange Revolution, a series of protests and political events that erupted in response to a rigged presidential election. The protests, driven by allegations of widespread electoral fraud, showcased the Ukrainian people's desire for genuine democracy and an end to corruption. The Orange Revolution brought to the fore the sharp divisions within Ukrainian society, particularly regarding its geopolitical orientation. While some favored closer ties with Russia, others looked towards the West, seeking integration with Europe and NATO. This tug-of-war between East and West would continue to shape Ukrainian politics in the years to come. The Orange Revolution, despite its initial promise, ultimately fell short of delivering on its transformative potential. Political infighting, coupled with a failure to address systemic corruption, hampered Ukraine's progress towards becoming a consolidated democracy. Now we turn to Euromaidan and the Maidan Revolution, a turning point. A decade after the Orange Revolution, Ukraine faced another wave of protests. The Euromaidan protests, sparked in 2013 by President Yanukovych's decision to abandon an EU agreement, ignited popular anger. The protests evolved into a movement demanding an end to corruption and a future aligned with Europe. The Maidan Revolution was a watershed moment in Ukrainian history. The government's violent crackdown fueled the flames of discontent. The world watched in horror as peaceful demonstrators were met with brutal force. And then comes the annexation of Crimea, a line in the sand. In the aftermath of the Maidan Revolution and the ousting of President Yanukovych, Russia made a bold and controversial move: the annexation of Crimea. This peninsula, home to a majority Russian population, had been part of Ukraine since 1954, but held strategic importance for Russia due to its Black Sea naval base at Sevastopol. Russia's actions, condemned by the international community as a violation of international law, sent shockwaves across the globe. The annexation of Crimea marked a turning point in relations between Russia and the West, ushering in an era of renewed tensions and mistrust. The annexation of Crimea had profound implications for Ukraine. It not only resulted in the loss of territory, but also emboldened separatist movements in the eastern Donbas region, plunging Ukraine into a conflict that continues to this day. Let's turn to Russia's interests, unpacking the motivations. Russia's interest in Ukraine is driven by historical, geopolitical, economic, and cultural factors. Understanding these motivations is crucial to deciphering the Kremlin's actions. Historically, Russia views Ukraine as part of its cultural sphere. Geopolitically, Ukraine is a buffer zone between Russia and NATO. Economically, Ukraine has valuable resources and industrial capacity. Its pipeline network is crucial for transporting Russian gas to Europe. Culturally, Russia and Ukraine share deep-rooted ties. In conclusion, understanding a fragile present, shaping a peaceful future. The story of Russia and Ukraine is a tragic reminder that history's long shadow continues to shape the present. Their shared past, marked by moments of unity and centuries of conflict, has left an indelible mark on both nations. Understanding this complex history is not merely an academic exercise. It is essential to navigating the current crisis and preventing further bloodshed. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine stand as stark reminders of the fragility of peace and the human cost of geopolitical rivalries. As we move forward, it is imperative that we strive for a future where dialogue, diplomacy, and respect for international law prevail. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the complex relationship between Russia and Ukraine. Don't forget to subscribe to It's Polarizing for more thought-provoking analyses of history's most compelling events and relationships.